my This Week in Conspirituality, I'm looking at Twitter, which took down 7,000 QAnon associated accounts this week, and they have put another 150,000 on notice. What that means, I'm not quite sure, but that was their statement. The entire spectacle is slightly confusing given that David Hayes, aka Praying Medic, one of the most notable QAnon devotees, and in fact, some people think he might be Q, is back up already. He came up the day after with the same handle, but without all of the followers. And he's advocating for people to get off of Twitter while he's on Twitter. Now, this is not new. I spent a good portion of yesterday browsing through QAnon profiles on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. And while I somehow made it through the day with decent mental health, many QAnon devotees advocate for getting off of social media and over to Parler, which is a social media platform. So the outcry, which was expectable, is about freedom of speech, and people are quick to invoke the First Amendment. The irony is that the underlying ideas of QAnon are rooted in millenarism and apocalypticism, which, while not necessarily religious, very much have roots in Christian theology. And the distance between a lot of QAnon's base and Christian thought, though not necessarily based in devotion, is not far off from the actual ideological framework. Now, if you were to read the First Amendment, you might get the sense that criticism against Twitter has standing. But freedom of speech is actually a living concept, one that has been debated in the courts for a long time. So if you look at the judicial rights upheld under the First Amendment, they include the freedom not to speak. Legally, I don't have to stand up during the Pledge of Allegiance. The freedom to use speech to criticize political parties, the freedom to use symbolic speech, such as burning a flag, and the freedom to contribute money to political campaigns. In 1976, Buckley versus Vallejo was argued under the First Amendment. But there are also instances where the First Amendment was used to say, no, you actually cannot say those things and be protected under the law. So for example, I cannot advocate for illegal drug use at a school-sponsored event, nor can I make an obscene speech at such an event. I can't burn my draft card as an anti-war protest. And specific to this story, I cannot make or distribute obscene materials, nor can I incite actions that can harm others. Those are not protected under freedom of speech. And so traveling around the world of QAnon, you'll find out that Michelle Obama is a man, that Hillary Clinton had JFK Jr. assassinated, or that he's actually alive and will be Donald Trump's VP pick in 2020, and that Adam Schiff raped a dead boy at Chateau Marmont. And these are some of the lesser theories ping-ponging around the internet, which, of course, brings us to Comet Ping Pong. It's this strange obsession with pedophilia that's the most troubling aspect of all of this. QAnon was spun out of the Pizzagate conspiracy, which had real-world consequences when Edgar Welch drove from North Carolina to the DC pizzeria, armed with 3 guns, and fired shots inside of the restaurants, thinking he had found the secret vault where the children were held, which was actually just where their computer system was stored. Comet Ping Pong is where the secretive child sex trafficking ring run by Hillary Clinton was supposedly being run. And we all know how that turned out. Just one example of how freedom of speech on the internet has real-world consequences. And there are many others, but I don't think you want to hear a 10-hour podcast, so we'll move on. What's worse about all this is while pedophilia is an actual problem, an estimated 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 7 boys are sexually abused by age 18, but only 1 in 10 of them will ever say anything. It's not Chrissy Teigen behind it. She had to delete 60,000 tweets and block 1 million Twitter follower accounts because of accusations that she's engaging in pedophilia. Now, meanwhile, in the middle of the worst pandemic in a century, our president, known in the QAnon world as Q+, the savior, he wished the world's most notorious pedophile's handler the best earlier this week. Now, add to all of this that Parler, the social media site where all of these Q devotees and other right-wing trolls are running to under the guise of freedom of speech and the First Amendment, the site has been blocking liberals that sign up when they challenge anything the followers of this new religion are trafficking. And if you think this isn't a new religion forming right before your eyes, let me take you for a ride with the Sea Org. And I think that's something we have to grapple with seriously, is that religions adapt to the circumstances. We've talked before about Christian Science and the ways that in the 18th and 19th centuries, religion has kept up with the times. Scientology became an official religion through the courts, by lawsuits. That's how they actually became denoted that. So we're actually watching the potential formation of a spiritual religious practice unfolding with QAnon right now. And that's one thing I think we really need to take a little more seriously. Now, freedom of speech, first and foremost, requires taking responsibility for your words. And while a popular refrain among QAnon devotees is to do the research, very few of them seem to abide by their own rules.